in
All right, we
there.
should be live, Mayor.
All right. All right, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. If you'd stand, an invocation. Don, will you lead us, and then please remain standing for the pledge.
Let me pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings of life you bestowed upon us. Thank you for allowing us to live in this city. Thank you for the opportunities you give us to serve on the city council, to work with the people in our community. Try to help this to be a better place to live, a better community, to have to answer and solve issues that face us each and every day. And Lord, most of all, thank you for Jesus Christ, my true Lord and Savior, who takes away the sin of the world. If we just accept and believe and confess our sins and repent, we too can be saved. Thank you for all you do. For it's in the blessed name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the March 2nd meeting. You received those in your package. I hear a motion to approve. Here a second. Second. Any comments, additions? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathead.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Hayden.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
All right, now we move to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions? Or need to move around anything?
Mayor, if it pleases the council, prior to the confirmation of the city clerk and the public works director, I would ask for a brief executive session on the front end. And then I'd also like to add another item, which will be headed item 5, and that is for authorization of the purchase of a Caterpillar backhoe. It is a budgeted item. However, we've had a failure in one of our pieces of equipment and would like to get an authorization to expend those funds. That's the only change I have, Mayor.
All right.
Motion to approve, Shane.
Second.
Motion is second.
Second.
All those, okay, any other additions or comments? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathead.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Hayden.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Next item is the city attorney's report.
Nothing at this time.
All right. City clerk's report.
I don't have anything other than I got 2 more meetings.
Not unless we call some more. We can call some more between now and then. All right, city engineer is here with us today.
Shall I come up beside you?
Sure.
Good evening. So, we are not catching any breaks on our USDA project, and Russell asked me to appear before you to explain to you the latest plight in our project. The snowstorms and the loss of power, it really adds up with COVID as well. I mean, as you probably know, if you track any kind of wood prices or any kind of materials for construction prices, the prices are going up very, very rapidly due to increased interest and lack of, on the wood side of things, it's problems with supply. On the gas side of things, we are the issues with the snowstorms in January in Texas have shut down their supply chains. So what's ended up happening is that PVC, which is the type of pipe we're using for the big pipeline job, the Town Branch Interceptor job, about 12,000 feet of 30-inch pipeline that we're putting in here, is that shortly after the bid, we had this catastrophe in Texas. And even though they're under contract, the contractor is under contract with us. The contractor is under contract with his supplier, who's under contract with the distributor, who's under contract with the resin, the extruders and the resin the people who actually produce the resin, all along the line of that supply chain. Everyone's claiming act of God or force majeure, however you say it. Everyone along the line is claiming that, and that's a break of contract scenario or a price increase scenario, all the way up the line to the contractor who contacted the city, and through the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, has been saying to us that PVC prices are increasing so rapidly that they can't keep up. It's gotten so bad over the last week that the PVC suppliers are refusing to offer a price anymore, that it's moving that rapidly. So the last quote we got from and just to explain how this looks from the contractor's perspective, the people that we're wanting to enter contract with and get moving, they have, the only clawbacks we have on them in this condition, they don't have an active God claim within our contract. I did check for that, and mine always do have that, but the USDA's contract does not, which I thought was interesting. Usually active God in that scenario just requires a time extension, not usually money. So that's how that's equitable to both parties. Time is costs the city money, so to speak. Therefore, that's what we would offer. In this case, the only clawback we have is the bid bond. So that's the security they offer to say they're going to enter contract and move along. It's a 5% bid bond, which means that if we tell the contractor to move forward with original pricing, he'll walk. I mean, the contractor said to me in no uncertain terms, we can't keep the prices. We can't do the job for what we quoted you with PVC. Okay, and PVC is the most directly impacted plastic product for pipe in the marketplace. It's directly impacted by gas prices and by this particular crunch. Okay, resin prices especially. So where we found ourselves is the last quote we got was an increase in price of over $200,000, and it's high 200s, 275 or something like that. It's probably gone up since then. Okay, so Russell and I have been wrangling with options here. Do you want to jump in?
No.
Okay, Russell and I have been wrangling with options. The first option is that we could enter contract with the contractor and sit on the project waiting for the prices to come back. USDA is okay with us doing that, but this is akin to playing the stock market in my mind. I mean, how long will it take a commodity type market like this to reach a peak and then start to come back down? If you ask my opinion on when, just a wild guess, I would say it's going to be past 6 months. Is it a year? I would say probably, but no one knows. No one knows. The other option is we would pay the difference. We do have that in contingency with what we brought to council. It's probably $300,000 by now, the difference. And that just feels bad to have a price that's already high to us continue to increase, but that is an option. The final option in my recommendation is that we go with what I consider an equal product. It is relatively new to the marketplace, meaning it's been around 12 or 13 years. It's a product that's tried and true and well tested in especially stormwater, but also in sanitary sewer. You may have heard of it. It's called ADS pipe, and it is made of a high density polypropylene product. And it is a product that I was looking at before we went to bid, Russell would tell you, because I thought it was going to save us money and I thought we were going to be over budget. The reason I did not bid the product that I considered equal is that two of your local contractors that I thought would probably sharpen the pencil the most on the bid were just unfamiliar with installing it for sewer. And I called Russell probably a week into the bid and said, hey, let's take it out and see if we get into budget here. And if we don't, we'll negotiate on the backside to be able to bring it in so we can bring the price down. Well, we came in relatively on budget on that project, actually within budget, what I thought it would be on that project. The wastewater plant's the one that broke the budget, okay? So in light of that, my recommendation is that we accept it. What we're getting is the highest end product they make. It's a triple wall product, a double gasketed product, where PVC, and I think in every way it's equal to PVC. The price is even money. And that also has been increasing in price, but not nearly as rapidly as what PVC is doing right now. So what my recommendation is to council and to Russell has been that we accept this and that we move forward. and that we don't roll the dice on this, where it could get worse, and we're sitting here in 3 months saying, man, we really should have jumped on that deal. I will tell you that I think that the ADS price is going to be way more stable. So if council so chose and you wanted to wait and delay for a few months and see what happens, I still think we have that plan B to drop back to ADS pipe, this high density polypropylene product. But I can't say if it's going to continue to go up. They won't fix pricing for more than a couple of weeks. So that.
Yep. So based on the engineer's recommendation and vetting of the project, staff's recommendation is to proceed. Doesn't necessarily require a council vote, just wanted you to be aware of the product change to move to the HDPE pipe instead of the PVC option that was in the contract. We would request a product modification in the scope. We would then have to submit it to USDA's engineers for approval as part of the project, and then we would proceed.
USDA has utilized this project or this product and has approved it on past projects. Yes, sir.
All right, how about talk to me again about our contract. You said they're not familiar with this project, the installation of this project. Is that going to cause us some long-term problems down the road if we go down this way?
Not the contractor that we're awarding to. There were local contractors that we thought may be low on the.
Yeah.
We reached out to them. That's why we removed it originally when we had put it in the spec. But the contractor that we have is familiar with the install.
Yeah, he's done 7 to 10 projects, some large diameter projects. United, who we're looking at awarding, is familiar with the project.
They are familiar with it.
Yeah, with the product, yes, sir. And they've actually installed large diameter. And ironically, Coggins now is familiar with it because he had to do a project in Noonan after I talked to him on an emergency project where City of Noonan approved it, large diameter sewer. So it's not untested. 2 million feet have gone in the last 10 years. But, you know, if I were to try to figure out how much PVC has gone in, it's drastically more.
Right.
So as far as, it doesn't make it a bad product, it just hasn't been out as long. And these different polypropylene and polyethylene blends are things that I'm very used to working with, either on liners for lagoons and landfills, and very used to working with high-density polyethylene pipelines for pressure usage. This is polypropylene. It's a little different. It's gravity, but I'm used to working in this. This is not anything new to me. And ADS has become my go-to for storm unless there's very specific conditions that I think something else is better. So
a net zero change in the overall cost of the project, but the product we're putting in the ground is going to be different.
Do we need to vote on this?
I don't think so. We just wanted to brief council on the decision to move forward with a separate type. We've tried to be transparent. I know the USDA project's had a lot of hiccups. We keep bringing you contracts. We got 2 more on there that are related. So I just want to keep council fully aware of what we got going on with the project.
Trey, did you say there were projects that you know of whereby you've used this ADS pipe?
yes, ma'am.
And Trey, you and the contractor both would consider it a product of equal.
Absolutely. Even the suppliers reaching out and offer to come and propose to you that it's equal. It just doesn't have that 30-year time under its belt. But you know, I could go into a lot of the history of different pipe systems. You know, there are a lot of pipes that were great 30 years ago that now people don't like. But these plastic polymer pipelines seem to be the key. And this is a corrugated plastic. The stiffness of it is way in excess of what PVC is at this size. The PVC that we specified. So there's all of these ASTM standards, or these standards put out by these agencies that everyone follows for gravity sewer, and it checks every box for the ASTM, you know, specifications for gravity sewer usage specific to these depths. So I mean, I feel very good about it. The failure of this pipeline, if there were to be one, is absolutely equal to the failure of PVC, and those come back to poor construction practices, not the quality of the pipeline. So, and those failures we're going to have a special eye on. We've got a full-time resident inspector that's going to be making sure that those failures aren't part, and a new public works director, I hope, that's going to be checking to make sure that we're able to keep a close eye on the contractor.
And the inspector is familiar with the product.
Absolutely.
So I guess if the project's coming in within the original bid based on the swapping of these two products, the bid on the bond on the bid is out of play on the contractor's bid.
The bid bond?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we would not, if, we would enter into contract under the change in material, but there's no
All
functional
he's
change.
just bonding is the price of the overall contract.
That's right. Everything stays the same. I mean, we're ready to execute. All I have to do is make a change here. But when we're talking act of God here, we don't have a whole lot of options. We can send him packing, but it doesn't cover the differential between that bid and the next bidder. And that bidder I've called, and he said, I can't execute the contract for what I bid either, because he's under the same pipe squeeze here, if you will.
You don't see any other aspects of the project coming, having these type issues with?
No, and we were able to lock in everything but the PVC specifically. We were able to get locked prices for longer, but PVC was a little jumpy, and so the contracts would have been upheld had it not been for the act of God claim that breaks everything. So, and it's a act of God is a legal term that in this case is truth. They're so far behind on the supply chain. It's a real mess. And bear in mind that 30-inch PVC isn't something that your supplier has sitting on the yard, not 12,000 feet up. So, I mean, you're not going local, you're not going to your buddy who happens to have it sitting around like 12-inch PVC. I mean, we're bound by what is going on with the big suppliers, the distributors. So.
That's all, Mayor.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we move to the city manager's report.
First item for council's consideration, I'd like to entertain a brief executive session prior to the confirmation of the city clerk and the city public works director.
And that's for personnel.
Personnel.
And for the purpose of
Oh,
potential litigation.
and for the purpose of potential pending litigation.
You've heard that.
Motion.
Okay, I got a motion, do I hear a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilman Ray.
Aye.
Councilman Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilman Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes. Ms. Nichols, how are you?
We're live.
Huh? The video ain't. You can hear Ryan's joke.
I'm sorry?
You can hear your joke, but you couldn't hear it.
Uh-oh.
They said you got 10 people watching.
How about now, Mayor?
Oops, I just hit the wrong button. Oh no. Yeah, you're good.
Good.
Yep. All right, we're back to regular session, to the first item on the city manager.
At this time, Mayor, if it pleases the council, I would like to introduce Ms. Oasis Nichols. We're glad here and would like to offer her for appointment as Deputy City Clerk for the City of Thomaston.
All right, you've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So ordered.
Second? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilman Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilman Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilman Reeves.
Yes.
Councilman Marhead.
Yes.
Councilman O'Toole.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item for council's consideration, we'd like to introduce Mr. Kyle McGee. And staff's recommendation is to hire Mr. McGee as the city's Public Works Director, and in accordance with the city charter, City of Thomaston, department directors require confirmation of the body. So at this time, I'd ask for council's consideration and confirmation of Mr. Kyle McGee.
You've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So ordered.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Russell, in case folks don't know, talk about the public parks, public spaces thing and how they'll report.
All right, so the city has traditionally operated, at least since I've been here, with two departments, one of which is comprised of parks and public places, the other which is, streets, stormwater, and Mr. McGee's position is going to consolidate those respective departments, consolidate resources, human resources, equipment, to be able to better prioritize, manpower and equipment displacement for, work throughout the city on all things public works, whether they be street related, stormwater related, landfill related, or related to one of our city parks. So, that answers it. And at this time, Mayor, if it pleases the council, I'd like to, Ms. Nichols, the first maybe.
Let's
We gotta
vote.
Oh,
We got to
sorry.
vote on that first.
All right.
Let's make it official, then we'll do that. So, any other further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilman Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilman Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilman Reeves.
Yes.
Councilman Marhead.
Yes.
Councilman O'Toole.
Yes.
Good catch. At this time, Mayor, I would ask that Ms. Oasis Nichols, she'd take just a brief moment, introduce herself to the general public who may be viewing live.
Hi, my name is Oasis Nichols. I'm not sure if they can see me. And I'm absolutely thrilled at the opportunity to serve the community in the city of Thomaston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome.
Brad.
This time, we're going to extend the same opportunity to Mr. McGee.
Mr. McGee?
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Kyle McGee. I appreciate this opportunity. I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Currently, am the Deputy Public Works Director for the City of Columbus. I'm born and raised here in Thomaston, Georgia. Glad to come home and do the same thing, bring my talents back here to serve my own community. So I'm ready for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right.
Mayor, so Ms. Nichols' first day is going to be the 29th, is that correct? And Mr. McGee, April 14th?
14th.
April 14th.
All right.
All right. The next item for council's consideration is the approval of guidelines and appointments to the Community Relations Committee. With that, Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to the council.
All right. So, I think we have talked about some of this stuff with the nominations. and all, sending them to Russell for, so everybody can see them. I guess the guidelines is what we haven't said, any guidelines we have not said, kind of mentioned what we think they might want to do. That's mainly, what we need to look at, as well as voting on these appointments. Anybody, council, how we want to do this?
Well, I thought we had said that we was gonna come in with a couple of names, and the council was gonna decide on each name that was presented, and that's one per council member, right? Am I right? Okay. So I have the list of the one that was submitted to our manager, so I don't know how y'all want to go by as far as approving them, but
Mayor, I would just, if you want to call on a particular council member, maybe in order, and let's offer a nomination at the pleasure of council. If you want to do the confirmation all at once, or if you want to do them individually, whatever your pleasure.
All right, so yeah, I guess we start with Don, the one person he wants. Is that how we would?
So it
'Cause
asks-
you threw two names at everybody, but I'm assuming one is your first choice. So you would submit one.
Correct. I submitted two names. Of course, the first person I talked with is Miss Sheila Hall. And I would like to put forth her name for participation in selection of this committee.
All right. Councilman Middlebrooks.
okay, I submitted two names also. My first appointee was the Reverend Jamie C. McGill, and my second was Miss Sheila Daniel.
So the one you're putting up is
Reverend McGill.
Reverend McGill.
Mhm.
I only submitted one name, and that individual's name is Priscilla Ann McCoy. That's the individual I would like to appoint to this committee.
All right.
I had a couple of suggestions, but the name I want to submit is Greg Smith, Pastor Greg Smith.
All right. And
I would like to nominate Mr. Jack Grubb as my appointee.
So that's done.
so you kind of, we want to do all these again, we've set the tone as a super majority for every one of these. Would you like to do this as a consent with all of them at one time? Is that,
I don't have a problem with
if you
that.
do, somebody want to make a motion to take those 5 names and we'll vote on those.
Make a motion to submit the 5 names to serve on this
And I'll second.
committee.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? So you're voting on Miss Sheila Hall, Reverend James McGill, Miss Priscilla McCoy, Reverend Greg Smith, and Mr. Jack Grubb. So at this time, call for a vote.
Councilman Whitehouse,
Aye.
Councilman Middlebrooks,
Yes.
Councilman Reeves,
Yes.
Councilman Ray,
Yes.
Councilman Mattel.
Yes.
Mayor, with the council's blessing, since you have contact information and have reached out to these individuals, if you'd like to forward me that contact information, I can send them out a preliminary email. I'll let y'all bless the drafting of it prior to submission, just making them aware of their appointment or confirmation of their appointment, and perhaps set up a preliminary meeting after which I have submitted to you kind of a tentative agenda of explaining the parameters of the committee, and make sure y'all approve of that, and we'll go on and try to put them to work. Is that okay?
All right.
All right, next Next item for council's consideration is the approval of the tax anticipatory note for USDA interim financing and for authorization to execute any and all pertinent paperwork that's related thereto. This is a tax anticipatory note in the amount of $1,954,000, and the purpose for it is tied to our USDA project. If you're aware, part of the proceeds that we received from USDA were grant monies, the other part was a loan. However, USDA will not issue the bonded loan until construction on the project is complete. They require you to have interim financing on the project. So in order to acquire interim financing, we reached out to local banking institutions. They submitted their best rates, and in this case, the best rate was West Central Georgia Bank, who submitted an interest rate of 0.78%, which is on an 18-month note, which would, if extends beyond 12/31 of this year, would be reissued at the same terms, no upfront fees and interest accrued on the back end. After the project is complete, another item on the agenda is to authorize a bond ordinance. The U.S. Department of Agriculture will then pay off the bank, which will satisfy them as far as our interim financing goes, and then we will go into repayment through the U.S. Department of Agriculture at an interest rate that is 2.375% on a 40-year note. It does not have any prepayment penalty. So staff's recommendation is to authorize and agree to a tax anticipatory note in the amount of $1,954,000 for West Central Georgia Bank, and to authorize the mayor to execute any and all pertinent documents related to that tax anticipatory note. Do you have anything on that?
Just that there'll be some documents for the mayor to sign and the clerk, but I have all those ready.
You've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilman Rittenhouse,
Aye.
Councilman Middlebrooks,
Yes.
Councilman Reed,
Yes.
Councilman Head,
Yes.
Councilman Tuttle.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is the additional item that we added, item number 5, and that is the authorization to purchase a Caterpillar backhoe. I've asked Mr. Joyce to step in. He has the pertinent paperwork. One of our pieces of equipment is down. There was $75,000 appropriated in the budget, and Lonnie has the exact value of the piece of equipment, which does exceed the amount budgeted. However, we feel that we have unexpended funds from previous years, which would be a carryover. However, from a cash flow perspective, we didn't expend the money in 2020 within the department, so we're going to request that it be expended via this purchase, and at some point in time, we'll have to amend the budget to show on paper that carry forward. So Lonnie, what do you got?
Yeah, so I worked with Horace. He requested a Caterpillar backhoe, $93,205. The bids, he also went, that's from Yancey Brothers out of Macon. This is the tractor that he wanted with all the specs, the backhoe. We also had quotes from Case for a used tractor, a 2018 for $73, and then a new tractor for right at 91, like $90,862. So we felt like that it was within reason to go with the one that he requested. And as Russell said, with COVID and the things that we didn't get done in the parks last year, mainly because we shut our parks down, I have all those numbers. Rashan's going through our audit now, but it looks like we're going to be about $85,000 or something under budget in things for public works on that side, not even counting capital on the park. So we have the funds there, as well as if we kick it down, and you know how we do budget amendments kind of at the end of the year, we budgeted the same thing for parks again, so we'll see what COVID does this year. But I don't think the funds are an issue to give him what he needs to kind of keep us going. So
It's a piece of equipment that we anticipated needed in part of the budget process. We just need it faster than we thought we were going to need it
Right.
because one of them tore up. and the price of a new one exceeded what we had originally appropriated as part of the 21 budget. Staff's recommendation is to authorize the purchase. Yes, ma'am?
And what's the cost of it?
$93,205.
You've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So ordered.
Second?
That's it.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
The 93 was Yancey.
Yes, Yancey Brothers.
And when will the piece of equipment be delivered?
Any day now, if we do this, they have it ready. I think it was at one of the Caterpillar dealerships like in Atlanta. So they were ready to bring it. We just needed to get everything in order. Yeah, it'll be coming.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilman Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilman Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilman Reeves.
Yes.
Councilman Head.
Yes.
Councilman Tupper.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is approval and authorization of a bond ordinance, specifically authorization for the mayor to execute any and all pertinent documents related thereto. I'm not going to pretend like I understand all the nuances of the bond ordinance, but I do know that our city attorney is well versed as she has drafted it, that it is a 40-year note, it's a 2.375% interest rate as was set at the beginning of our USDA project, and this is the portion where the loan is bonded that will repay the tax anticipatory note that we just voted on. So we borrow the 1.9 interim financing, we do the project's complete. The bonded loan from USDA pays off the bank, then we go into repayment with USDA on a 40-year note.
So fixed rate for 40 years, right, Russ?
Yes, sir. No prepayment. So do you want to, is there any other, it's a 2021 series combined
is.
utility?
It is. It's a combined utility. It's a parity to the 2013 bond that we had. So that bond is still in place, and this would just carry over.
Staff's recommendation is to authorize.
Lon?
I was just gonna say, don't get caught up on the details of a bond. We're basically borrowing money from USDA. I mean, it's just a loan. There's a lot of legal jargon because municipalities can't just go to a bank and get a loan. You can do a TAN or a bond, but it's essentially no different than we've done before.
And the bad news was about the price of PVC. The
That's
good news is whenever in our lifetimes or our parents' lifetime could you borrow money at 2.375 for 40 years? Fixed. So,
Yeah.
whereas one side's working it, making it difficult. If you had to borrow this money for 4%, you'd have to owe how much more it would
Absolutely.
cost. So at least we got the interest rates working for us.
Is that much?
You make that formal motion?
Yeah.
Have a motion, do I hear, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilman Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilman Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilman Reeves.
Yes.
Councilman Head.
Yes.
Councilman Tupper.
Yes.
The next item for council's consideration is the approval of an amendment to the city cemetery ordinance, specifically section 30-3, subsection 3, with regards to horizontal markers. I believe this is the third request to modify, and Ms. Gale found an omission in the most recent
Now it's
submittal.
Jessica.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over
Okay.
to the city attorney for explanation on clearing this ordinance up.
I think this draft of the cemetery ordinance should take care of markers. We were kind of piecing it together as people requested changes and did that, and then my understanding is city council wanted the option to have markers, not just veteran markers in specific parts of the cemetery. We just added a new portion to that cemetery in the last city council meeting. And so markers would be allowed in all of those, subsection 3, either veteran markers or non-veteran markers, the same size and diameter and weight as y'all had previously stated. So that's what this ordinance says.
we have revisited the cemetery 5 times in the past 6 months or 9 months. And, my question is, would we better be better served to rewrite our city cemetery ordinance?
And I talked to Mr. Greathouse about this. I'm happy to try to draft something. I think some of the issues that we have addressed recently, not necessarily the burial lots, but issues as they come up, things that we haven't ran into, I don't think the city has come up on before, and we've had to revise some of the ordinances, but I'm happy to look at those and give you some idea of what we can do to make them better.
So the staff recommendation is to approval of this amendment, correct?
Approve as presented.
I hear a motion.
So ordered.
Second?
I second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
All right.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Hill.
Yes.
Councilmember Kirk.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is approval of an amendment to the schedule of service charges. You should have a copy with your packet headed G7 for your convenience. The suggested additions are in highlight. These are not new fees. These are fees that we actually presented to the city council as part of your budget presentation that went into effect 2021. However, they did not make it over to the schedule of fees that was approved as part of the budget. So you approved it when Lonnie came up and presented the budget. However, when we actually drafted the resolution for the fees, they were omitted. First of which is a utility connect fee for residential property owners, a reconnection fee for after normal office hours, and this had to do with the water department having to go out, cut off water, which otherwise would be circumvented if you follow the plumbing code. You're supposed to have your own cut on, cut off. So what we have a lot of times is residents want to do some repair work. They're having to have us come out and cut it off at the meter. So that charge was for after hour. The meter reread fee, which we waived when we had our utility snafu, is we typically get inundated with meter rereads, and the policy we put into place was if we have to go out and reread your meter, there'll be a service charge associated with that. However, if an error is determined, that a charge is not warranted. The demand water charge was a $500 fee on a 6-inch service line or a fire line, and that's more of a insurance charge, so to speak, for the opportunity cost that's associated with us providing that. Meaning, if you have a fire meter, you may never use it, but we have our system built out to provide you that flow and pressure at any given time. This just helps the city recapture some of the operational costs for the water department tied to the servicing of those fire meters and the provision of that service for a particular customer who needs it. The other of which is a hydrant meter deposit of $700. When somebody, a contractor or whoever, wants to fill up a tank from one of our fire hydrants, we have a $700 deposit, which actually covers the cost of the meter that we provide to the contractor. So they come in, they fill out the deposit, we give them the meter that's going on the hydrant, and then once they turn that back in, we bill them for the consumption of the water that they use going through the hydrant, but we give them the deposit back once they turn the actual meter in. And those are the only charges that were presented, or the fees that were presented as part of the budget process that didn't get transposed on the schedule of fees when we presented it to council for your consideration. Or not for consideration, but when we adopted the budget, they weren't on the schedule of fees. So staff's recommendation is as it was at the time we presented the budget, to approve the fees and the amended schedule of fees as presented.
All right, you've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll put it in form of a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
All right.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Hill.
Yes.
Councilmember Kirk.
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is discussion about our moratorium, specifically for self-storage facilities that have been requested by a local business owner. If you'll recall back maybe a year or so ago, we had a conditional zone for the old Carroll Sausage Building. I think we heard from the Ellingtons, Mr. Harris was wanting to purchase the property. It was a commercial zone. I think we rezoned it M2C, is that right? And the condition that was placed upon it, you should have a copy headed in your handout G8. And specifically the conditional use, the only M2 use allowed is for an interior climate control mini storage warehouse located in the existing building or architecturally consistent additions physically attached thereto. Well, Mr. Harris has contacted the city and he would like to make a physical addition that is architecturally consistent with the structure that is in place. However, the property is located within the Downtown Development Authority, and part of the moratorium that was enacted that included properties in the DDA had a prohibition against the issuance of new permits specifically for self-service storage units, which by definition this particular property is. So my understanding is that the moratorium would override the original ordinance that allowed for the conditional use. However, I wanted to bring the issue to council's consideration and ask the city attorney, to be familiar with the moratorium in this specific case, and to brief the council and to understand your feedback on how staff should proceed considering the ordinance and conditional zone and the fact that we're under a moratorium for self-service units within the DDA.
I think you guys are all familiar with the moratorium and the reasons that we put those into place. We are looking at rezoning and have started down that path. Subsection Q specifically states that if a landowner makes a substantial change in position by expenditures or reliance on the probability of being issued a building permit based on the existing zoning code at that time, and assurances of the zoning officials that he acquires a vested right and is entitled to a permit despite the moratorium. And I believe that's what Mr. Harris is requesting, is that he had in mind at the time he asked for zoning change, that he came forth and advised council that he intended to build this second, I'm not sure if it's going to be part of it or totally separate.
He said he could do it either way. It could be a separate physical structure, but when I called out, the specific language in the condition, he said certainly he can make it attached to. It's going to look the same brick, same stonework. He just wanted to know where he stood with regards to the moratorium and what he interpreted as was permission under the grant of the conditional use when we rezoned the property.
So my position with regard to the moratorium is, at the time we put this into place, or you put this into place, you instructed city personnel not to allow any permits, and he would have to have a permit to build. So under the current moratorium, we wouldn't be able to provide a permit to build, whether it be in conjunction with the existing building or a separate building.
So this is not on the same track as the.
It is.
It is.
And we looked at the permit, is that correct?
And I think the permit that he originally pulled for the construction did not include the addition, and that permit is expired.
What is DDA's and staff's thoughts on this?
Staff's thoughts are to not take any action that would devalue or undermine the intent via precedent under the moratorium. I think Mr. Allen would do a fine job. I think it's gonna look jam up. However, I don't want to set precedent that would invalidate the moratorium on its face.
The moratorium's up, what, in a couple of months, it's May 1st, it expires.
Third, I believe.
Third, somewhere in the first, yeah, okay.
Third.
So pretty much he's had to wait.
Staff doesn't have a recommendation. This is an interpretive issue and a policy decision based on ordinances and a moratorium that we put in effect, and, you know, a calculation of what the impact would be in terms of precedent via an action one way or the other.
What does council recommend?
From staff's point, I don't want to direct a member of my staff to either deny or issue a permit that may create problems with an enacted legal document such as an ordinance or a moratorium. I don't want to be in conflict with what you've put in place.
They say it's a moratorium, I guess we need to just let the moratorium ride out.
And the thought is the moratorium would allow time to,
And for transparency and is allowed by law. Staff's recommendation is going to be to extend that, probably just based on where we are with our downtown master plan. We envision should have deliverables back by August. And then a subsequent item on the agenda tonight is actually for the rewrite of the zoning ordinance, which would tie directly back to the intent of its enactment in the beginning.
so we think that the plans for, might be in place by September or late August?
You know, I've asked for deliverables prior to August and middle for the rural zone. Probably in its full development, it could extend beyond that, but we should have a good feeling of where we are.
So it's a matter of waiting possibly 6 months.
I assume Mr. Harris was wanting to get started
Yes.
quickly. We fully leased up over there.
Yes, and to his credit, you know,
That's a great looking building.
he's done everything he
Yeah,
said he was
has.
gonna do. It looks great, and I have no doubt that the second edition would be equally as impressive. I'm just worried about the overall precedent if we do it. If there are implications and if we don't quite meet the muster of the investment or whatever that's required that would circumvent the moratorium.
Is that just something that's up for interpretation, still researching, or is it
We have
bigger than that?
We have specifics in the moratorium that deal with a landowner that wants to appeal to the city council to lift the moratorium as to them. It's in section Q, and there's a subsection 1 through, I believe, 5. That if he has expended funds and changed his land in preparation of that under the old ordinance, believing that he would be able to get a permit, then he is vested in the right to get one. But that's not what I understand is the case with Mr. Harris. I think he had plans, but he hasn't gone into expending funds towards those plans before we put this moratorium in place.
Okay.
I think the concern is we've contracted with WLA Studios to put together this master plan for the downtown area. We also are talking with Mr. Johnston about rewriting our zoning ordinances. We are trying to get to the end as far as our market analysis, in the downtown area, but it just takes time.
Right.
So the staff, I mean, does council have any recommendations, or are we just gonna set and continue, not issuing permits at this time? Do we extend to Mr. Harris the opportunity to file an appeal under the provisions, or have we already determined that based on our knowledge, the criteria wouldn't qualify?
Under the moratorium, he would ask city council to lift the moratorium as to his specific property. This is kind of a zoning issue. His is already zoned for those, and so I don't see that being applicable.
When did we say the moratorium is up?
May 3rd.
But you foresee extending that moratorium possibly
Yeah,
because it's not.
Based on timeframes and what we've dealt with Mr. Bill, the volume of data that he has inundated us with, getting you a polished draft ready for adoption.
Who's to say the moratorium won't change a little bit? I don't know.
Right.
It could, based on what they give us at that point and what you want to do.
And I think part of the DDA's thoughts in this master plan is that, in the past, we've done certain things, or maybe had certain views of the way things had, but we hadn't exercised as much control, and things had just sort of gone left and right. And the whole idea behind this master plan is that it would exercise more control over what we want the town to look like in the future. And I think the worry is that this might set a precedent that we don't accomplish.
So I guess I don't know if it worked in anybody's mouth, so obviously we're not saying no, just kind of let the process play out and invest a lot of money in this plan. Looks like we're about to expel some more potentially on the zoning ordinance rewrite, which we're about to talk about. I hate to, anyway, stymie that. This individual goes and looks at this zoning ordinances.
I mean, can you kind of motion and vote or anything?
No,
It's
just staff. I mean, staff will not issue any permits in accordance with moratoriums in place.
just,
The next item for council's consideration is authorization to execute a contract scope of work for the zoning rewrite. You should kind of have a summary and a copy of the scope, which is headed G9 attached with your packet. And I asked Mr. Bill to kind of give me the synopsis. The original contract was for the rewrite of the sign ordinance, which ties to some of the articles that are tied to the zoning rewrite, which all need to really be done. The intent was to kind of test them out on sign to see how we liked the product before we brought back to council the zoning ordinance. We would like to adopt them in unison. That's why we have not brought you the sign ordinance, because it's tied directly to zoning. It's actually a part of your zoning ordinance. The original contract, I think, was for $27,000-ish. And as you can see under the heading sign ordinance rewrite, don't think we're going to get into the full balance. We're going to, have about $10,000, $8,000 left over on that contract. So he's keeping up with his time. He's not billing his contract fee, but he's billing against that contract fee. The proposed cost to rewrite the zoning ordinance is $65,000. It's unbudgeted, but you do need it. In a lot of the work that Deanne and I do, looking at City of Thomaston ordinances and your zoning, and I think Joel even testified to this before he left, Most of our zoning ordinance was written in 1967. A lot of the intended uses of the definitions specifically and the allowable types of businesses are old and outdated. There's a lot of technological advances, even types of businesses that exist in 2021, which we have kind of tried to capture and piecemeal together through exceptions in the previous or the current zoning ordinance. Needs to be rewritten. We're already investing substantial time, resources, and money in conducting a downtown master plan. We've already committed, to trying to apply for the rural zone designation. We've also committed to rewrite our sign ordinance. So staff's recommendation is to authorize the execution of the agreement in the amount of $65,000, which will require a budget amendment so that we can authorize Mr. Johnson to proceed to finish up the zoning ordinance. Sign ordinance is already done. This just gets into the details of specific land use within the districts and even potentially to creating additional districts. Been very pleased with his work. We've had several hours worth of conference calls working back and through what we've done with the sign. I'm pleased with his work. Do you have anything you want to add on that?
Just that Russell and I were talking about having Mr. Johnston start on the zoning ordinances, but it really needs to come after our WLA comes in. If you get WLA's master plan and market analysis and you don't know anything about the ordinances, it's not going to come together.
So in WLA Studios is familiar with Mr. Johnson. They have worked together in the past, so they know each other, and we've already made those contacts so that whatever we incorporate in our downtown master plan will transition over and there'll be parity with our zoning ordinance.
All right, you've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilman Brighthouse.
All right.
Councilman Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilman Reed.
Yes.
Councilman Lahey.
Yes.
Councilman Mattoon.
Yes.
The next item for council's consideration is approval and authorization to proceed with a flock camera system. I'm going to turn it over to the chief of police, but before the chief gets into the flock system, I've asked him just to give a brief update on our red speed camera system. We get a lot of questions, a lot of speculation, and wanted the chief to try to answer some of those questions. So I'm going to take a break and turn it over to you.
Okay. Like Russell said, we talked about just recapping this to go over what we had went over before and approved before. So I just kind of want to go over so everyone has clear. And when I'm done, if you have any questions and you don't understand any part of it, please ask me so we can get it, we can get it straight so everyone knows. So first of all, let me just start briefly with how we started and how we ended up wanting to get into this safety program. All of you know Pastor Greg Smith. Pastor Greg Smith is one of my school crossing guards, and he's worked these intersections for probably he was hired right after I started, so he's been doing it for at least probably 4 years now. And I have Pastor Greg's blessing to mention all this tonight. Pastor Greg has hounded me for years about we need more lights, we need bigger flashing lights, we need more signage, we need more stuff to slow cars down, because the cars just fly through those intersections at the school zone. About 2 years ago, I was at the chief conference and there was a red speed booth where they were talking about this program. And that's how I got started with red speed, knowing what the problems are and how fast cars were. That's what started the whole thing. So just so you have a brief history of kind of what led us to do this. Of course, we contacted them, and as you are aware, that we did the whole study on what the traffic was, and that study did result, if you recall, over 2,000 violations in one day. From 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. there was over 2,000 violations. So with that, let me go through the basics of the program. of course, the whole program's up and running live and it's been operational for some time now. Those cameras come on at 7 a.m. and they shut off at 4:15 every day, Monday through Friday. From 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., the speed limit is 30 miles an hour with the yellow flashers on. That's the school crossing time. The speed limit's 30. A citation is not triggered unless a vehicle is doing 41 miles an hour. They're given 11 over. After 8 p.m., the speed limit changes and it goes back up to 45 miles an hour. So at that point, a citation is not triggered unless you're doing 56 miles an hour over. It's 11 that triggers it no matter what the speed is. So from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, the camera system runs, and that's the speed. Then it goes back to 30 miles an hour from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And the speed limit, again, is 30, and 41 triggers it. So those are the time frames, but the camera is operational from 7 a.m. and it goes off at 4:15. Technically, it shuts off at 4:15, but we're not authorizing any citations after 4 o'clock. The camera system only operates when kids are in school. It's off at 4:15. It does not issue citations at night. It does not issue citations on weekends. It does not run on holidays. It only runs when children are present in school. If it's a teacher workday, this past Monday was an instructional day at the school system. The camera system did not operate on Monday because kids were not present. It only operates when children are there. And that's the biggest thing you can tell people that call you, because I think that's the biggest question we get is what are the times and when it operates. And there's been a lot of misinformation on Facebook that these cameras operate all the time, and that is not true. They only operate, I can't emphasize it enough, they only operate when kids are present. Red Speed is issued and has been given the school calendar, so they know when school is out, they know when all the breaks are, they know when the teacher work days are, and that system is automatically shut down. On days when there's been changes, they just recently, as you're aware, the school system shut down for 2 days because of COVID vaccination. We manually well, it runs, but we don't authorize. We didn't authorize any citations those days because the kids were not present. And Georgia law states that we only operate those cameras when children are present. So that covers the calendar. Those citations are authorized by a police officer. They are not authorized by Red Speed. We have a police officer that reviews every video that is sent to us. We review that video, validate that the tag on the car matches the car, and that the GCIC printout of the registered owner of the vehicle matches the information that came back before that ticket is validated. An officer reviews that, he validates it, sends it back to Red Speed, then a citation goes out. The fines associated with the citation are $75. It's a $75 fee. There are no points assessed to any driver's driving record because the state law on this program states that the registered owner of the vehicle is responsible for the vehicle, not the driver. We had 2 people come into court today and argued with Judge Fowler that I wasn't even in Upson County the day we got this ticket. And the judge said, well, we don't dispute that, but your car was, and your car ran the speed zone, and the law says that the owner is responsible for the fine, not the driver. That's why they don't assess points to your driving record. Secondly, in regards to that, you will receive 3 notices before any action is taken. You get a first notice 30 days, a second notice 30 days, a third notice 30 days. You can request a court appearance at any time. There's a phone number on the back of the citation. You call and you get an administration hearing. We had our first court for it today. We had 24 people register for an admin hearing. That's 1%. 1% of the violators that have come through have requested an admin hearing, because we've had over 2,400 violators that have been issued citations. So that's how. After the third request, if you don't come to court and you don't pay the fine, the state places a hold on your registration. They don't suspend your tag. They don't take it away or do anything like that. There's no bench warrants issued for anybody. There's no lien. There was a post that the police department's putting liens on vehicles. None of that is true. They place a hold on your registration, so your tag's fine, but when you go to get your new tag, to renew your tag, the state will not allow you to get a new tag until you pay the fine. So you would have to come to pay that fine and then take proof back to the tag office that the fine has been paid to get your tag. So that's all that happens, is they place a hold on your tag. And I know that that question's been brought up. As far as the equipment, there's been questions about equipment. All of that equipment is diagnostically checked every 24 hours by Red Speed. They run a diagnostic test at 2 a.m. every single day. If anything errs, they immediately are supposed to notify us that they're not going on and nothing is validated, and they shut the machine down until they can fix whatever the problem is. They are also constantly, which was part of the contract, constantly updating the software if there's issues or equipment. So all of that stuff in there is the latest, greatest stuff in those boxes for the equipment, the radars, the camera system, and the tag reading equipment. So just some general information so you know, we have been averaging 537 violations a month, which is about 134 a week, and which is 27 violations that we're validating and sending out per day. Like I said earlier, only 1% of all the violations so far have requested a hearing. So the reality is, I know we have people calling and complaining and fussing about it, but it's 1% compared to what's going on. We have had over 878 have been paid thus far. As far as the zone itself, there was a rumor or something said that we went out and put up signs after the program started. That is absolutely not true. There are 3 signs posted before you get to that camera system. The first sign says school zone ahead, and it's a big sign in neon yellow. You go about 50 yards further, I don't know the exact footage of what it is, but you go a little further up, there's a second sign that says school zone photo enforcement. And again, it's in neon yellow letters and white letters on that sign. Then you get to the third and final sign, which is the large sign with the flashing yellow lights that says school zone, and it says 30 miles an hour when flashing. If it's not flashing, it's the normal speed of 45 through that whole zone. For the record, that speed was increased. Last year, it was 25 miles an hour. The DOT did their study when we got the permits and said that the speed on 74 should be bumped, and they raised it to 30 miles an hour. So there's 3 signs there. Those signs have been in place before the program ever started. On October 28th of 2020, there were 2 Facebook posts made on the PD page explaining this whole safety program in detail of how it was going to work, the dates that it was going to go in effect. On November 2nd, the 30-day warning period began. We began issuing citations, but they were warning citations. There was no actual fine associated, and it clearly said on those citations that this is a warning. That ran from November 2nd to December 2nd for 30 days. During that 30-day period, there were 2 additional Facebook posts made on November 23rd, again explaining the details of the program, a Q&A thing that showed all questions and answers for the program. All of that was posted in both on October 28th and November 23rd. Those posts and information was given to Dave Piper at the radio station, and they were also given to Debbie Lord, the Beacon, and I know Debbie ran stuff in the paper about it, and I know Dave talked about it on the radio. So they were advertised in our local media in addition to our Facebook page. And there were thousands of views on it. On December 2nd, the whole program went live, and that's when we started issuing our first citations for the program. 2 more quick things on Red Speed, and then any questions you have, I'll take them. The turnaround time. So when you go through the school zone, and if you commit a violation, the average time for that violation to come to us to be reviewed and validated is 2 to 3 days. 2 to 3 days after the violation occurs is when we get it. Because Red Speed actually does their own evaluation of it, make sure everything matches up before they send it to us. We do our validation on the process, which could take anywhere from 1 to 2 days. Typically, we do it in 1 day. Then we send it back to Red Speed after we have validated and said, yes, this is a good violation, and send it back to them. Once Red Speed gets it, it takes them another 2 to 3 days for them to make their final review and actually mail out and send out the violation. And then you have another 2-3 days of mail process, of it going to the mail and arriving at your house. So it's anywhere from a 7-day to a 10-day period from the date that you commit the violation before you receive notice in the mail. Typically, 10 days is about the furthest out we've seen, but it usually falls between that 7 to 10-day window is when you get those notifications. The final thing I'll say about it, I spoke with Pastor Greg today. We talked about this program. He will come and tell you that he has seen a drastic decrease in the speed of the vehicles since we have implemented this program. When we did a 1-day study and we had over 2,000 vehicles speeding through that zone, and now we're getting 27 violations a day, that is a huge significant drop in the speeds and people slowing down. So I would tell you on all accounts, this is an extremely successful program, and it is achieving the slowing down of the vehicles. Now, we still have a lot of vehicles going through there, but the program is meeting its goal. With that, does anybody have questions about Red Speed or how it works, or anything that you're really not clear on?
Yes, I do. I guess when it was presented to me at the presentation, when the Red Speed guy came in, I was under the impression that when I voted on it, that it was only during the hours of school, like 7 in the morning and 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the evening. I did not know that it was going to be ran during the hours that school was in session, you know, like maybe 9 until 3 o'clock or what have you. To me, personally, I guess it was my fault because I didn't understand and I did vote on it, but it seemed to me when they presented to us, it was for the kids' safety as far as crossing the street in the school traffic. Am I right?
It was presented that it's for school safety and the kids' safety while kids are in school.
Okay, but
Because we do have kids that commute and come to and from the school all throughout the day.
right, I understand it. Okay, but my thing is though, we in there for the safety of the children during this traffic time, not during when they're in school though. Because how many incidents have we had before this year ever happened? Before we put the radar up there, how many accidents have we had?
How many accidents involving children?
Yes.
None to my knowledge.
Okay, all right.
But I
now-
certainly don't want to wait till we have one before we
I
take
understand that, I
action.
understand that, I don't either, but my thing is though, is that, you know, our community think that we're trying to take advantage of them as far as trying to find a way of making money. That's the only thing that I hear. I don't know if any other council member heard it or not, but that's what I've been hearing.
Well, I can address the money.
And-
We make money from the program.
Mhm.
But people say that like we're lining our pockets and we're getting bigger salaries or something for
No,
the
no,
money.
no, 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 no.
No, I'm saying that's what kind of the public, they insinuate that. We make money from the program and we use that money to purchase equipment, to purchase software, to upgrade stuff that we have that's not in my normal budget. So if we want to provide the best equipment, best software, and the things that help us fight crime, that help us make our community safer, I can do that one of two ways. I can come to you guys and ask for you to raise my budget. I can ask for capital projects to get these things, and we raise taxes on everybody. Or I can fund it through programs like this where the money comes from people violating the law during school zones. So to me, it's much better to fund that. My budget at the police department, and for the past several years, the only real capital that's in my police department is vehicles. You know, every year we purchase a couple vehicles, but short of that, there's been very little that we have come for as equipment. But
So
I
you're
will
saying
tell
that
you,
we should,
but I'll
so
tell
you're
you,
saying that we should put radar up to make money for you to buy?
no, I'm
what you
saying
need.
that the funds from this are used, the funds for this are used to purchase the equipment that we need for the police department to do our job and be more effective. Over the last 4 years, we have purchased a lot of nice equipment for the officers, and we have some of the best equipment around with our body cameras, our index, and a lot of that is funded through programs like this. I haven't come to this council a lot at all on capital purchases outside of our vehicles and a few minor little things.
Well, I want
If
you
I
to
don't
know-
have this
now-
program, then I would be coming to you
Well, I want
guys.
you to know, I don't have a problem
No, I understand.
when school is in, to slow down the traffic, in the morning and the evening. But I do have a problem when the kids are in school,
Well, to be honest, Jeff, no one should be driving that stretch of
Well,
road where it is over 56 miles an hour anyway, whether school's in session or
They
not.
shouldn't do it on 19 either,
No, I
nowhere,
understand.
but we taking advantage on East Main Street. We taking advantage of drivers on East Main Street. And it's
I
not,
don't
to
feel it
me
that way.
personally, it's not right because we're not doing it, Sheriff Kilgore not doing it out here on Night Trail.
Well, when we presented the program, it was never presented that it was only running an hour and an hour. It was presented that it runs, and we could go back and look at the minutes and all.
Yeah, well,
It was
I mean,
presented that, and the law states,
saying it is.
the law states that you run it from an hour before and an hour after school. And it runs while kids are in school. I don't think we're taking advantage of anyone. We have a
That's my
system in place
opinion.
that
I think
keeps
we
cars
are.
going slow while children are
Mhm.
present in those school buildings and while people are commuting in and out. And if you're up there, there's traffic in and out of there all day long, all day long. And it slows cars down, not only for kids crossing, but from accidents, from people pulling out of there when cars are flying up and down through there. The program has been very successful. It has drastically slowed down the vehicles in that area. So, and again, I'll fall back to the real complaints we're getting is about 1%. 1% of the people, and most of the complaints that I see, because I follow it on Facebook, I follow what's going on and people saying it. When somebody pops up and complains about it, I don't even have to defend it because most of the citizens are defending it. There's tons of if you say people are complaining about it, I can name 10 more people that are defending it, saying that this is a great program and they're glad that we're doing it
I
and
done
it's
had
slowing
3
cars
people to
down.
contact me today after court, after court today.
Well, 3 people again would fall under that 1%. I mean, that's.
Well, I'm just saying though, you're still getting complaints though. I don't care if 2%, you're still getting complaints. And to me personally, I don't think it's a good program to run during the hour that school is in session. I don't have a problem in the morning and the evening, but to me, during the time when school is in session, that program don't need to be ran. It's unfair to the citizen.
Jeff, one thing that's hard for me to argue against, though, is be aware that in the hours that are outside those traffic hours, but during the school time, we're allowed 56 miles an hour in a school zone. That is pretty doggone fast. You're pushing 60.
Well, look, that's a state highway, okay? That's a
Okay,
state
but
highway.
it's a
But
school
the speed
zone.
limit's 45 all the
Well,
time.
that's what I'm saying. It's
And
45, it's a
Jeff,
state
It's
highway.
45 all the time.
If it is lowered, if the study
If we-
showed 2,000 people.
You still got your cameras up, though. I mean, your speed zone up during the hour that traffic is in when kids are going to school and getting out of school.
I agree.
My thing is though, you're allowed to drive that there when school is in session or on weekends. Say for instance, same thing. What's the difference?
Well, I'm just saying, the idea,
I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference though. What's the difference in driving on weekends up and down that road going over 56 miles per hour?
because
Well, if they
kids
are-
aren't in school.
If they are driving
If
56
they
on
in
the
school,
weekends,
they-
they can get a ticket as well if we're sitting out there and pull them over.
Yeah. To me, all right, my opinion is that it's a trap, and we don't need to be doing this. It's totally wrong to me, to the citizen. To me, that's my
I
opinion.
disagree that it's a trap. It's not a trap.
Well,
It's an effort to.
like I say, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as
I
far
would
as
like
that,
to see
there's
a,
been- As far as that though, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but there's been nothing secret about this. There's been nothing, this has been advertised, it's been put out. We've disclosed every detail ahead of time. We've explained over and over and over again how it works, when it operates, when it doesn't. So there's nothing secret about it. I agree, I understand what you're saying, that you don't like it and think it's a trap, but it's not a trap in the sense that we're tricking people. There's nothing tricky about it.
What is the speed limit in that section on a week?
It's 45 all the
Okay,
time.
so they're speeding.
It's 45 all the time.
But you're allowed 10 over,
It
dude.
only drops to, and we don't issue a ticket unless it's 11.
I know.
I mean, we're not issuing tickets until they hit 11 and over. So we're not doing anything different than what we would do if we were sitting out there in a marked car and pulling them over. There's no difference whatsoever. It's just not a marked car out there pulling them
So
over.
they could be pulled over on the weekend.
Absolutely.
If you were,
Absolutely.
so,
Absolutely.
Well, that's fine though. If they get caught speeding, then that's fine. But instead of them running into a trap is what I'm getting at, guys. That's what I'm talking about.
But it's okay if an officer pulls them over, but it's not okay if a
No.
machine does it.
Well,
It's just, but it's the exact same, it's the same equipment, same camera, same system.
okay, if you go down 19, you don't have a camera down there to tell you if you're speeding or not. You have to be caught by an officer. Why not over here the same way?
Because this is in the school zone and it's only running during school times. It doesn't run any other time. And it's treated just like 19. When-
That's wrong.
When kids are not there, it's treated just like 19.
Disagree with you.
I would like to see
Are
a,
we on a contract with this here? Are we on a contract?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe it's a
How long is the contract?
I believe it's a year.
Okay.
year, I think it's year
We
two.
typically do a year.
I think they wanted to, and we,
They
I think
wanted,
Joel,
I think,
yeah,
more than
pushed to
two,
one.
but we told them we couldn't do more than one. I'd have to go back and pull that contract.
I think I remember that. I'd like to see us, like, flash up your speed if you go through there. That, to me, that makes me slow down more.
well, you've got.
Well, they
Sign.
did.
See what
You,
they did.
like, you know how it says, I'm going 56.
Yeah, Harvard brought it out there at Civic Center Drive when we had that detour.
Yeah, we've got it out there
He
now.
put it out there and.
You know, I'd like to see that, like, maybe, if you could put them permanent, I think that would even help. Oh, you know, the people
Well,
that's not paying attention.
There's
to
no
the other
question that the program is working and being successful because the amount of speed and the vehicles and the speed out there has drastically dropped. It has drastically dropped. And I can tell you from the man that stands out there every day, he can come in here and tell you, and we've seen it, and the numbers themselves show from the study to what we're seeing now.
That's the time when he's out there.
The numbers, though, for the whole day show that it's drastically dropped from when we did the study to now that we're doing this. The number speeding through that zone for the whole time frame has drastically dropped.
So, Ms. Middlebrooks, you were saying you think it should be only when the kids are,
Or
The hour before, an hour after, or whatever.
coming in
Just
and
during
going
the school
out.
crossing, I mean, just during the school crossing time.
Not during when they're in class.
Right.
But the reason the state wrote the law the way is because kids are present there all day long, and parents are bringing kids in and out all day long.
Sick
And
kids
you've
coming
got
and
traffic
going.
in and
Not
out.
that,
And
not
so
that
it's
much
not
traffic,
just,
not that much traffic.
but they
Not
are.
that much traffic. I'm off, chief.
But you shouldn't be,
I'm over there every day.
I understand, but you shouldn't be riding 56 miles an hour through the heat.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But my thing is though, is that we put it out there for a reason. And you know
And it's worked, and it's doing exactly what we put it there.
I know, to make money.
Well, we can raise taxes, and I can put it on my budget request.
It's not right.
you thinking we did it as a means of making money?
Yes. Yes.
But the question is, what do we do with that money?
I know.
What do we do with that money?
That's not my point.
I know, but the things that we're using it for are public. As a matter of fact, what we're about to talk about, you're gonna see a direct result of that money, what it's gonna do for us.
Well, my opinion, I think it's wrong. You know?
Any other questions?
Just to clarify, that contract was signed on July the 10th of 2020. It's for a year long. It can be extended for an additional 4 years, 1 year at a time.
But it
unless it's-
requires an affirmative vote.
It does. It can be terminated with written notice of its intent not to extend within 60 days of the expiration, but it's going to be obviously voted on.
So we have to provide the notice 60 days prior
60
to
days.
expiration of July 10th.
Yes.
So back
Okay.
up 60 days and we would have to provide notification
If you intend to.
if you intend to cancel. All right, with that, it's a good segue into item 10. The next item for council's consideration is approval of authorization to proceed with a flock camera system. Mike, you want to tell them about flock?
So what Flock is Flock are LPRs. We have been operating LPR camera systems in Thomaston for over a decade. The LPRs are the cameras that you see on the back of the patrol cars. We currently have 3 cars that are equipped with LPR camera systems on them. All an LPR does is when a vehicle passes by, it captures the tag and a picture of the car. And then it just stores that data. And then it sends it, depending on what you have it set to read, it'll send alert. So that police car that has the LPR, as tags are driving by, it's reading every single tag that drives by it. And then if a tag has no insurance, it sends an alert to that car saying that that vehicle that just passed, and it gives a description of the car. If it's a stolen car, let's say stolen car. If it's someone who's got a warrant and we have tag information and can tie it to that tag, it'll pop up. So it gives alerts. It'll send up a tone on their computer in their car that there was a hit on a tag. What the flock safety program is basically we're taking that same camera system that we've been operating for a long time and we're putting them on poles. And we're placing them at entry points into the city. So as you come into the city on 36, as you come in north on 19, coming from Griffin area, coming into the city heading south, or if you're coming northbound on the south side, we strategically place those at every major entry point into the city. So as you come into our city, it captures an image of your vehicle and it captures an image of your tag. So instead of one officer having that information handy to them, it now makes it ready to all the officers that are on duty working. And so each camera system would be numbered and it would say, okay, we just got a hit on camera 3 that a stolen vehicle just entered the city. The units can start moving to that direction. So I want to give you 2 quick stories on flock safety systems that have just recently happened and how these camera systems are used. This is not like Red Speed. This is not a system that issues citations and people get tickets in the mail. That has nothing to do with it. When a violation is sent notice to us through the flock camera, an officer physically has to locate the vehicle and make a stop and make contact. So there's none of this has anything to do with issuing tickets through the mail or anything like that. So a very recent story that just happened, Brookhaven PD. Right now, there's probably over 40 to 50 agencies throughout Metro Atlanta that operate these flock camera systems. And to my knowledge, there's close to 5,000 cameras throughout Metro Atlanta and local areas. Pike County, just adjacent to us, has 16 of these cameras in Pike County. So a recent event that just occurred like this past week, Brookhaven PD had a lady that was walking. She was doing an afternoon walk for exercise, and a vehicle pulled up. This guy flashed a badge and he tried to abduct her. He tried to force her into the car. She was able to break away and run from him and call the police. Of course, he fled the scene. When he fled the scene, he passed one of Brookhaven's flock cameras, and the image of his vehicle and tag was captured. They were able to immediately access that information because she gave a description of the vehicle. So she said, I don't remember exactly what the vehicle was, but said, it's a white Toyota, whatever. You can go to your flock system and enter white Toyota in the last 10 minutes. You can actually put a time frame on it, and it'll pull up every white Toyota that passed any of your cameras in the last 10 minutes. So Brookhaven PD went in, put the description of the vehicle that just tried to abduct the lady, and boom, they got a pop on one of their cameras. They were able to get the tag information, ran the tag information, got the name. Within 2 hours, the man was in custody. When they went to the house, they found the car, they found the badge in the car, and then they had some other victims from other surrounding agencies that reported the same thing happened. So they caught someone and charged him with attempted kidnapping within 2.5 hours, solely from the flock camera system that they had in there. The flock camera systems are designed to help you combat crime and solve crimes in your area. Almost 80% of crimes that occur, a vehicle is involved and somebody leaves the scene of a crime. If they pass any of your camera systems, that data is captured. The data is captured and stored in a cloud, and it's stored, and the data belongs to us. It belongs to the Thomaston Police Department, so it's not shared with anyone. It's not going to any outside agencies or not any outside entities or companies. It's strictly ours. The data is stored in a cloud for 30 days, and then it's deleted from the system. So if you have a crime or something occurred, you want to gather that data within 30 days. Now you can, once you isolate an incident, you can save that footage for later use if you need. What we're hoping to do is we have already met with them We've done a mapping meeting where we've placed, and it's basically on 19, 36, 74 on both ends, so forth. There's 10 different locations. We also, with Red Speed, have an agreement with Red Speed. Red Speed has a partnership with Flock, and they can add a wing camera to the box that we have out there. So the 2 cameras out there will be integrated into the Flock system. Not meaning for tickets, but they will also read tags and give us data and information when we need to collect information stuff. The biggest thing it's used for is you can set it for what you want to set it for. I know Chamblee PD, I'm very good friends with the assistant chief of Chamblee PD. They have 30 of these cameras throughout their city. Chamblee is such a condensed and such a populated area. They don't have it set for expired tags. They don't have it set for no insurance violations. They only have it set for charges like warrants and for stolen cars and major things like that. But you can set it for like an agency our size, it would be set for no insurance. If a tag passes that camera system, it would send an alarm to every car on duty that a car just passed camera 2 with no insurance. We don't want no insurance cars on the road. That's a car we want to remove from the roadway. So that's an example. Instead of just one car working for you like we have now, and that camera only working 12 hours a day, you have 10 cameras that work 24 hours and can feed that information to every officer on duty. It'll send a little red flag. They're going to log, when they come on duty, they log into the Flock system and then they minimize it on their screen. And so it sits over in a corner. So when you get an alert from one of the cameras, it'll pop up what camera it is, and that little box will pop up on their screen. They click on it and it tells them what it is. Is it a stolen car? Is it a wanted person? What is the violation? And it'll tell them what it is, and then if officers are nearby, they can attempt to locate the car and make a stop. The Flock system is $2,500 per year per camera. And Flock installs the camera, they provide the cameras, they do them. It's just like Red Speed in the sense that they completely maintain the system. We do not have any cost.
It's also tied to Amber Alerts and BOLOs.
Yes.
Like if another jurisdiction has a BOLO or an Amber Alert and it's entered through GCIC, if that car passes through your jurisdiction,
It's gonna pop and tell you that we just hit it. So the other story, a quick story, was in Chamblee, they had a child abduction. They had a couple that literally kidnapped a child at gunpoint from the mother who was pushing a baby, an infant baby in a stroller. They knew that Chamblee had Flock systems and they covered their tag when they fled with the child. Again, they were able to enter that it was I think it was a maroon Honda Accord or some type of foreign car. They entered a description and said in the last 10 minutes or 30-minute period, any car, well, somebody had described the car as having a dent in the fender. Well, they popped on 2 cameras and they were able to see the dent on the thing. They contacted the jurisdictions next to them and said, can you check your Flock systems for this vehicle? Well, lo and behold, they hit 2 other cameras in another jurisdiction and they had removed the thing from their tag and now they had the tag number. Within 6 hours, they were at the house. They had tracked the car across, I think, 12 Flock cameras through 3 jurisdictions, and they were able to go to the house and make an arrest on both people and recover the child safely.
The
And that
Milner
was-
shooting.
What's that?
The Milner police shooting, didn't they?
Yeah,
They
the
got him in
shooting that they
Alabama.
had, they tracked him all the way to Alabama. He hit about 5 different Flock cameras in different counties throughout Georgia and over into Alabama and tracked that shooter and were able to apprehend
Hey,
him.
Mike, is this something the county's gonna be interested in?
Yes, I've talked with Dan about it. Dan is, well, this is the reality. Dan is very interested in it, but he doesn't know how he's gonna fund it.
Do we
That bring-
have any of these cameras in use now?
No, we have tagged with the same cameras that we're talking about using. We have 3 that are on vehicles, that we use on vehicles right now. Same system. We just have them mounted on vehicles. We're talking about putting them on poles at entry points. So the funding part of
being
it,
on vehicles, are they being used to,
yes, those cameras are used every day. Every day that those officers work, those cameras are utilized. And they make traffic stops all the time using those camera systems.
so how long have we been using these cameras?
We've had one for over 10 years and we added 2 About a year after I got here, we added two. Most of you, I think, were here when we added those two. So system. So we've been using 3 for the last 5 years or 4 years, but we've had one. We had one here long before I got here, and they used it for many years. And it's the exact same camera system. So that's been the issue for him, is how to fund them.
Right.
These are $2,500 per camera, a one-time $250 installation fee, and then it's just $2,500 a year per camera. So with 10 cameras, we're talking $25,000 a year. I'm going to fund the whole program through RedSpeed. All of the funds that we make through RedSpeed will completely pay for and fund this program. It doesn't cost any tax dollars. I'm not coming to request any funds. We have the funds through the program.
And also, if like Russell's subdivision, he has a neighborhood subdivision, they can buy into this
Yes,
as well.
neighborhoods, HORs, a lot of neighborhoods buy these programs and put them in their neighborhoods. So Sheriff Thomas has 16 in Pike County. When you obtain a flock system and become, in the flock system, you can send a request to other agencies to share flock data. So now, once I get them, I can contact Jimmy and I can access all of his 16 cameras. He can access our cameras for us, seeing if there's a hit, for us if they're working a case. Perfect case, we had a missing person about 3 weeks ago. I called Jimmy Thomas and I said, here's a vehicle description with a tag number on a missing child that we think went off somewhere, whatever. He's 20, but he had popped on 2 of Pike County's camera systems and had went up through Spalding, and not too long after that we were able to make contact with him. But we were able to get a hit on those cameras. They put in a 10-day period in the last 10 days of this hit, and it showed that vehicle going through there. So we'll be able to share with other agencies. He has them. Dan has mentioned interested in them, just about funding them. This is what we would like to do. We're going to completely fund the program through RedSpeed funds that we have through RedSpeed.
So the question before council is their interest to proceed. We received template contracts, but prior to final legal confirmation, we want a nod from council.
Thoughts?
Another example of the program, the night we had the murder on over here off Tryon Mill Road, the route that car left the murder scene and went, he would have passed one of our cameras. One of the cameras that we're placing will be on Tryon Mill Road. And from what we know from that investigation, if we would have had one of those, they would have passed by and we would have the tag information and vehicle information the night of the homicide.
Just an issue of concern, not necessarily related to the camera. It's manpower without the man, and Mike and I talked a little bit of it. I mean, we've had 4 homicides in the last 12 months in Thomaston, Georgia.
We haven't had 4 homicides in 10 years. So it's the one we had last night, subject left in the vehicle.
Again, I think this is public safety technology we need to invest in, because this helps the entire community. Officers can't be on the street, every minute of the day, but these cameras can be a useful tool for additional public safety.
We have a lot of shoplifting cases and theft cases that go up and down 19 from Home Depot to Walmart and all those shopping centers through there. 2 of these cameras are going to be placed on 19 that would strategically capture vehicle data of anything that we get a report of. Because with Walmart, we get vehicle information all the time and somebody moves on a thing, and then this system, we would be able to capture their tag.
Doug, Ryan, your thoughts?
I like it.
A little bit, not a little bit, but we got a lot of information, and certainly
And I sat in on one of the meetings with the flock people, and
worth looking into for sure.
it looked like something that we're doing it already, but you're limited because you got on a car. I think we've asked this years ago, why can we put them somewhere besides just a car? even though you can move a car, but,
Chamblee PD averages 6 stolen cars a month, all recovered from their flock camera systems. They get alerts and they end up doing felony traffic stops and recover stolen vehicles.
I mean, it's a way to expand your police force without having to pay salaries and benefits.
Mayor, can we ask for a motion and a second to proceed?
so do I hear a motion to proceed?
So ordered.
Second?
Second.
Any,
What's the, let me just understand what's the motion?
Motion to proceed with a draft of a contract between the city of Thomaston and the flock system to be presented back to
Okay.
council at a later date for authorization.
we have a motion and a second on that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilman Whitehouse,
Aye.
Councilman Middlebrooks,
No.
Councilman Reeves,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Just for informational purposes, about almost every agency I know, with the exception of Pike County, that has flock camera systems, are funding them through Red Speed or through a school safety zone program that they're running, a light company.
But
Those use those
isn't
funds.
Pike County thinking about, or is that?
Actually,
Zebulon
Pike County and Zebulon are
looking at-
speaking with Red Speed now, I believe, or a company similar.
So the motion is to get, to draw up a contract.
And we're gonna
look at a
bring
it
contract,
bring it back.
Bring it back.
Okay.
Next item for council's consideration is discussion of alcohol license suspension hearings. As you're aware, there was a case done, or multiple cases done by the Thomaston Police Department pursuant to the current City of Thomaston ordinance. If there is an act that is in violation of our alcohol chapter, that requires for a 90-day suspension of an alcohol license. The ordinance further stipulates that the suspension cannot take place until a due process has occurred. Persons have the right to request a hearing before the mayor and council. We have to give them notice of a hearing 15 days prior. So what we want to talk about tonight is how council would like to structure those hearings.
As it is now, the entire council will meet with the person that is.
And we have how many to hear?
14, another thought, do we need to talk about the late arrivals?
Probably so, yeah.
So we sent out a notification, and the notification read that you have until 12 o'clock p.m. on X date, which was last Friday, to present the city manager with
Monday,
written,
Monday.
Monday, with written notification of intent for a hearing. All right, we received 12 hearing requests prior to 12 o'clock. We received 2 requests for hearings after 12 o'clock. So from a technical standpoint, those that requested a hearing after the time frames alcohol license should in fact be suspended. However, we wanted to talk to council about an allowance that would grant those people the right to a hearing, which would ultimately require council to modify your alcohol ordinance that would trigger an automatic hearing or right to a hearing at a specified date in the event that there was a notification provided to you that you fell up under the section that triggered a suspension of your license.
And this was done in College Park, but the entire council didn't meet. It was the city clerk and the city attorney. So, but you're saying the way ours is written is where every council member attends these hearings.
Our ordinance, this portion of our ordinance is old. It's from what I can tell, from November of 2001. And so it specifically says that they can ask for a hearing before mayor and council. So that's their due process is before mayor and council. And like some of the other ordinances that we've talked about, these are very old, and it needs to be redone. And you guys can certainly come up with a different procedure for these in the future. There's all types of ways that you can handle these, but right now, we're stuck with what we have.
So you couldn't modify it with these in particular, given certainly the due process, but could you modify it to where you, to Ms. Lakeitha's point, to, condense that into not the entire council, mayor and council?
I think that, you can look at any type of procedure. You can hire somebody to be kind of an administrative judge on these. You can certainly change the ordinance before these hearings are set. We are trying to look at dates for those hearings, but that would have to take place pretty quick.
The thing was, you had to be consistent.
Yeah.
Right. That was it.
And I guess while we're talking about it, I mean, just preface this with, I by no means condone any underage sale of alcohol to anybody under any circumstance ever. I guess some are perceiving the penalty to, for a first offense to be quite draconian and harsh. And I don't know if it is or not. I don't know what other municipalities have, if we've looked at that or that we have experience with, but kind of like just to get, maybe Russell, I don't know if when we're looking at these ordinances or whoever else may have experience, I don't know what they did in College Park, or just some kind of reference. I mean, but if this is, in line with what others have done, then, it is what it is, but just thought it would beg the question.
I've looked at other city ordinances and they do them different ways. I've not seen any other ordinances that are exactly like ours. Some have, a suspension period less than 90 days. When ours was written, it says if there's a violation, it shall be 90 days.
Yeah.
And so there's no discretion
Right,
in there.
right.
The only thing that I would caution you on is that there be some parameters in there so it's not discretionary, so it's not subjective
No, I think
to the
all of
point.
it. Shall is, in this sense, would be the right,
Just,
right verb to use there.
So the penalty is 90 days.
it's 90 days.
It's suspended for 90 days.
So first offense.
And it doesn't even say first, it just says
So what triggered it? Was it triggered by one sale or a number of sales?
One sale.
It's, I think,
They did an undercover operation. They hit them all.
And how many establishments it,
14 out of 21.
how many?
14 out of 21.
So only 7 did the correct thing.
I can tell you from experience of running these operations, because I ran one every year. I ran a unit for 6 years in Griffin, and every year I ran that operation in Griffin. And the first year we ran it, it was kind of like here. It hadn't been done in many, many years. We had 20-some violations the first year we did it. The next year, that drastically, we had like 8 or 7.
what were your penalties?
And, well, we issued a citation to the clerk.
And
the
we
city-
did that as well, I think.
Yeah, we've done that.
Yeah.
All we do is we go in, do the operation, we issue a citation to the clerk. Everything else is an administrative action from the city. But Griffin did the same thing. They took administrative action as well. But my point being, we plan to do this. Thomaston had not done to check to make sure these stores are operating in compliance. We expected to get a number like this. I would probably safe to say, well, if we run this again next year or 6 months from now or whenever we run it again, we'll probably have maybe 2 or 3 violations.
So I think the clerk it's a pretty sizable citation, at $400 and something bucks.
449.
Yeah. And the owners, and again, I'm not saying that the owner needs to take responsibility. That's first and foremost. hard to, you hold the clerk accountable, but is it, I think the owner needs to be held accountable, by, no doubt about it. But,
You know, the opposite perspective of holding accountable, we are sending letters from the police department to the stores that complied, basically saying, we did an undercover operation and you did what you're supposed to, we appreciate it, thank you, for following the law. So we are going to be sending those out.
So when they get their alcohol license, they see this ordinance, they know if they sell, this is gonna be the penalty.
I believe they get a copy.
So we need to set a time to hear these. We gotta go with what's really,
I have to give them 15 days notice. Ms. Wheeler has drafted kind of a basic, outline of what that notice would look like. But it's not like we can set it next week. I have to give them 15 days.
and then we need to determine if we're gonna grant the two that didn't fall into.
Correct.
Is there a recommendation, should we, or
You said the two that didn't fall into what you did?
that didn't send it in time, that were late from the deadline of appeal?
I think from an administrative process, it makes sense to make the right to due process an automatic trigger. Meaning you have a right to a hearing, you get an administrative act, we go on and set that, now I'm only having to send one notice instead of multiple notices.
And that's the problem with what we have, our ordinance as it is right now, is we sent out, we had them hand delivered, we had them certified mail. There was no absolute process under our ordinance that said that I followed the provision for hearings, and so we wanted to make sure that everybody got their letter. And so we did it two different ways. And obviously they got it. But our hearings, it basically says you have to ask for a hearing in order to have a hearing. We gave them 10 days, which is certainly reasonable to ask for a hearing. Some cities do this same process and they only give them 3 days. Some cities don't do that process at all, and it's an automatic hearing. You either show up at this hearing to dispute this or argue it, or your license are suspended. And so that's what Mr. Thompson's talking about, is skip
So
that first notice
automatic
and just
hearing.
go to an automatic hearing. That way we're giving them their due process. Whether they take it or not is up to them.
I think that's a safe thing.
I agree, we go with that route. Automatic due process.
So we'll grant the two that were late the
Which would
appeal.
require a subsequent amendment.
So, Russell, just, I want to make sure I have the ramification and the penalties right. So first offense, lose the license for 90 days. Second offense, you lose it forever.
Permanent revocation.
What's the deal about the 400?
The clerk, whoever made the sale, I think is fined $440-something. And then obviously I would assume that the alcohol license is in the name of the owner of the establishment.
Do we need to set a date for these? Or we need,
Pleasures to council if you want to modify prior to hearing, or if you want to set hearing, or we've kind of done all the legwork up to this point. We've submitted all the notices, everybody's filed a request for a hearing.
14 hearings. So they'll be individual, because each person have to do it individually, right?
14 hearings, and we know that 3 have legal counsel.
So
Right.
what
And
time
they-
frame? What time frame you allow?
I'm
each?
thinking second week or third week in April. First week of April, spring break.
Right.
You're right.
So we're either looking second week or third week, depending on your availability.
What are they doing this time now? They sell it?
But because of their due process and right to a hearing, their alcohol license currently not suspended until after such time as a hearing is taken.
I'm still not convinced that the whole council needs to be there. And that's a lot, I mean.
think you,
I
I
guess
think you
that's
almost
what
kind of
we
tied
do.
up. I think you probably should go with that route this time, and then
Change
and
it.
then we can change
Yeah,
something
yeah.
elsewhere. But I think you kind of got to go what you got right now.
We're in a tight time.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's food for thought as we improve the process going down the road here.
And Dan, what would be your estimate as to how, if they've got an attorney, it could take a longer period of time?
I would estimate one, just without an attorney there, maybe, I'd say 30 minutes, start to finish.
And with an attorney could be 45
It
minutes
could
to an
be.
hour.
And they can show up with an attorney, they don't have to.
But,
We surely not get,
They show up with an attorney, but they have violated the law, though, right?
Well, you have to determine that based on what they present. I would submit that you should probably handle these hearings just like you would in any other non-jury forum, with you guys sitting as the person they present the case to, and somebody presents the city's case to you, the other side, the licensee gets to cross-examine the witnesses that are brought in, and they get to put up witnesses and, you know, evidence, and then there's a decision made as to whether or not they violated.
surely we're not having all these in one day.
That's why we're
No,
here to talk
I
about.
mean, that's a lot. I think we need to break it up.
You do have 8 of the 14 have paid their fine in court on the citation,
Yeah.
which is an assessed and a guilty plea in court.
And some of these can go really quick. I mean, the ones that are not represented could go 15 minutes. I mean, really could have a quick hearing on those. I just don't know how to estimate that.
I don't know if I'll ever watch that episode of Perry Mason, they'll render an opinion, it's illegal
Could
substance.
you schedule them all for one day and then postpone it if you get to running long and reschedule it, or how does that work?
You could, the way that the Superior Court is scheduling things, most Superior Courts anyway, are staggering the cases so that due to COVID, everybody's not waiting around at the same time. They're kind of staggering them, trying to keep them on task and on time.
You just started at 8 or something.
Whatever time.
Anybody got a good date?
Well, it can't, for me, it could not be the first full week of it.
I'm gonna be gone.
You're talking about spring break? Yeah,
Is that up since spring break as well?
it is.
Spikes as well.
Can you limit somebody to say, there's a time limit on this, 30 minutes, or can you?
Procedures, totally what you decide.
Well, can y'all maybe look into this and research what others have done and how we need to do it? We just need to say we're gonna hear 3 or 4 a day, and then it takes as long as it takes.
The
So
city-
not limit to say, well, you limited my due process by,
Right. Well, it's a small issue. I mean, I don't mean to minimize it, but you're not trying a case that's got multiple issues in it. It's one-
I don't know.
And,
And
I mean, it's whether, you know, it's a
Great.
small.
Our presentation will probably less than 5 minutes. I mean, we're just gonna come in and the officer's gonna tell you what he did and who he sold to, and that's it.
Well, if you got an attorney, then they're gonna cross-examine, they're gonna do all this, I don't know what the level of,
so who would represent the city? Would we have the city prosecutor here since Deanna have a conflict of interest?
Me and Mike can
Anything else?
handle.
Or
That's what-
he's not an attorney.
Yeah, who's
It's like a probable
presides?
cause hearing.
Yeah.
We would need to have a prosecutor from the DA's office here because they'll have a defense attorney. So, and Deanne will be a conflict, she cannot serve as the city attorney, so we need to have a prosecutor from the DA's office and, you know, to represent the city's interest.
Well, the DA's office won't do it because it's technically not a criminal case. I have reached
Well-
out to a couple other attorneys to
All
see
the
if they
local
would be interested.
attorneys have conflicted out and the DA won't do it, so you're stuck with Mike.
Okay.
Or unless you have a third party out of town to come in here, unbiased third
As
party.
far as the police department, we have Sergeant Andrew Nixon ran the operation, and then we have Officer Jake Janowski was the undercover officer. So you're only gonna have 2 officers that are gonna come and talk about the operation. And of course, I'll just here.
I have talked to others, well, at least one other, and they did it the same way, just as a non-jury type, hearing where the city puts up their, evidence and testimony, they're cross-examined, and then the other attorney or other opponent puts up their witnesses, city gets to cross-examine, they put up their evidence. and
So
it's-
is it a majority, where we don't agree amongst ourselves, is it just like any other vote, it's a majority?
Should, it, I would think so. There's just nothing in your ordinances that,
It's really kind of like a bench trial, but with just 5
it
judges.
is, it is.
And what if it's a state, then you got, I guess, the mayor, does the mayor break tie if they're,
Well, if all 5 of you here.
well, yeah, I'm assuming the numbers don't work out.
I think it would be just like any other act of the council.
But all these folks are guilty though, aren't they?
And that's what I don't understand, that's a.
Are they not?
Their
They-
evidence
they-
has got to be presented.
They still get, their due process is that they're innocent until proven guilty.
But they've already been written a citation.
And 8 of them have pled to
Well,
those
some of them
citations in
have-
court.
More importantly than that, some of them have already paid the penalty.
But this is an administrative hearing for the license
Oh,
holder,
not-
not
not the
clerk.
act.
Right.
Not
Not
the clerk.
like this.
Right.
Yes.
What are they gonna do?
How about Friday the 26th? Start at 8, 30 minutes apiece.
April 26th.
April, you gotta go to April, so it'll be the
Sorry,
23rd,
I'm in
right?
the wrong month. Sorry.
April 23rd.
So look at 16th or the 23rd, tax days the 15th.
I hear it's 23rd.
23rd.
Are we just going, are you gonna stack, you're just gonna hear them all, and just go all day long?
Roll with it.
April 23rd.
Whatever y'all want to do.
Is it open to, say,
It's open to the public.
well, say Doug is the first one that goes up and whatever happens, you're the next person, you may go, fine, or so make it go like that, or it could be sequestered for 3 weeks.
Yeah. They all guilty, not gonna take all day.
It'll be all day.
I doubt it. If they guilty, they guilty.
You've got to give them the time frame.
I don't understand that, but what can they disprove that they didn't sell it?
Well, again, I think you gotta concentrate on not the act, I guess, is what I gotta get in my mind, it's on the suspension of the license. And I guess that plays into whether they actually did it or not. But if our ordinance is so cut and dry, if if we're not proving that they did or didn't do it,
Yeah,
the license, but the license is predicated on the fact that they did or didn't do it.
And the key is, we need to say as little as possible about whether they're guilty or not. They're innocent until they.
'Cause they
Exactly.
they could really come in and say, he showed me a fake ID or an ID,
You've got to wait and.
so you got to wait and hear what they have to say.
But we're basically assessing guilt as well, because you have to make the determination whether they're guilty or not to trigger whether or not their license is up for suspension.
But
You
that's
said
only
8.
done here. That's only done
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
We're
You said
assessing
8
a violation
establishments have
of
paid the
city
fee.
policy.
Yes,
Chief, you
ma'am.
said 8 of those
8
folks have
8 of them have
paid?
already paid their fines.
But is it
We're not-
clerks that pay?
I don't know who paid the fine,
See,
but the
that's-
tickets have been paid.
But that's
Those are different.
that's the clerk, this is the owner
Yeah.
with the alcohol license.
We did not require them to appear in court. They could just pay the fine or they can come to court. And so far, 8, to my knowledge, 8 of the 14 have paid.
And what they're appealing is really not if they sold it or not. They're appealing losing their license for 90
Right.
days.
For 90 days.
That's the only really what we
Matter of
got.
fact, I would highly doubt from my experience with them that they're gonna come in and argue that they sold. They're just gonna make a case to
keep their license.
Well, it doesn't seem like there's, if that's the case, there doesn't seem like there's much leeway on our end if it says shall under our current ordinance, I mean,
Under the
What-
current ordinance.
so what's there to hear?
You still have to give them the due
I mean,
process.
I guess we
can't
could,
change it. We can't be in violation of an ordinance.
Well,
Yeah.
we can't assume what we're gonna hear, so we owe them the due process, the right to come and present themselves. And then we just have to be familiar with the ordinance and go from there. But what we do owe them is the right to hear their argument.
Right to a hearing.
Right, you've got to give them their due process.
Without deeming them guilty ahead of time.
Right.
We gotta just hear, we gotta.
But it's not a due process on the act, it's a due process on the suspension of the license. Is that right?
Correct.
But how can you have due process when it says shall do this if this?
The due process relates to the presentation of your case. I mean, that's what due process means, the ability to be heard. And they're simply asking to be heard.
Okay, well, I ask it this way, once we hear them, what legal, I mean, we'll forget to keep them hearing, because I agree, they need their due process on that, but what leeway do we have in the current ordinance? No matter how,
Well, we can-
they can, no matter what is presented at the hearing,
I think based on maybe the preponderance of evidence, if you think there's a violation of the chapter, then you're bound by the shall.
And that's our section 6-70. Says each and every license issued under this chapter 2, a licensee shall be suspended for a period of 90 days from the date of suspension upon the first occurrence of any event described below.
but if it's not the act, and it's more of the license, we're
Yeah.
assuming that the act,
But it says the license holder or any officer, employee, agent thereof, blah, blah, blah.
nothing to decide. But
Could we,
not according to your ordinance, it
could we
seems.
reduce the sentence?
If the ordinance has changed.
That was my whole point. I mean, there's nothing that you can do. There's no reducing anything if we determine, and obviously we're gonna hear it before we make that determination, but if it is determined, correct me if I'm wrong, that they did in fact, or did sell to an underage person, then the ordinance is very clear that it shall, 90 days, period,
As it's written.
as it's written right now,
Yes. Unless there was a change to it. That's-
prior to the hearing.
Yes. Yes.
so April 23rd, we start at 8 o'clock, and
So let
then,
me just ask you, what is the possibility, that's a Friday, what is the possibility of possibly hearing half of it on Wednesday starting at 8 and half of it on Friday starting at 8? And
It's
then,
totally up to y'all if that's what you want to do.
and I know Jeff's got work hours too, so. I mean,
Was that
it'd be
the-
better for
Whatever is
It's
agreed.
written up 2 days.
Wednesday, Friday that week,
Right.
21st and 23rd.
Those are the best 2 days for me, Wednesday and Friday's good.
you. And then just hear half, 7 on one, 7 on the other, and hopefully you're through by lunch.
Yeah.
Wednesday and Friday, April 21st, April 23rd. Half of them one day, half of them the next day. Okay. Is there any,
People here.
Yeah, I'll have to check, make sure no one have anything vacation scheduled, but unless they have vacation already scheduled, it wouldn't be a problem.
That's all I have, Mayor.
all right, is there anything else? Other business? If not, I hear a motion to adjourn.
Order.
All in favor? Go home.
See you.
Man, thank you.
Get your umbrella.